Matthew here from MiniWargaming.com, and it's time for another Sit and Talk. And I'm actually recording this one on the Wednesday, so I have only 8 pages of comments, which is unusual. I usually have like 15 to 20. So the reason I'm doing it on a Wednesday instead of normally I usually do it Thursday or Friday, this is still going to go up on the Friday, of course, but it just means that if you posted comments after the Wednesday, or on Wednesday even, then I wouldn't have gotten to them, is because totally booked up. I'm playing my first 7th edition 40k game this Friday. And tomorrow I already have a schedule. I have to go to like a bike-a-thon for my son, and then we've got like other appointments in the afternoon, so I don't even know if I'll have time to do this. And still got to film the final videos for Snagabog's Greed, the final story time and all of that. So it's been a very busy week with 7th edition coming out and just lots of stuff going on. So if you are new to the show, this is the Sit and Talk. This is basically an Ask Me Anything kind of show. You ask me whatever you want about anything you want, which means that things like religion and politics can come up. So if you are easily offended by these topics, please do not watch this show, because I will talk about them if questions are there. And I will express my opinions and my views, which I don't expect everybody to agree with, and that's perfectly fine. You should be able to do that, right? In some sort of civil way. Of course, if you want your questions and comments answered, you need to leave a comment below. Not if you're on YouTube, though. If you're on YouTube, then in the video description there will be a link to the Mini Wargaming page where you can leave the comments. So that way I can print them off a little easier. I'm doing something a little different today because there's still the question of what order should I answer the questions in. Now, the perfect situation would be that I comb through all the questions and I pick the ones that I want to answer and the ones that I think would be most interesting. But the fact of the matter is I don't have time to do that. I really don't have time. So many things going on that I just want to be able to. This is why I actually have you answer or leave the comments on my site, because then I have a program that prints them off nicely like this, rather than the YouTube comments. If I copied and pasted those, it would take twice as many pages and it would all be convoluted in different font sizes. And so I was looking for the easiest way to do this. So I decided to come up with a new method. I know we were trying, first it was just the first people to post. I got to those first. And then it was the highest rated comments. But the problem with the rating system, there's 2 problems. One, if you put a comment in later on in the week, then you're unlikely to get it up in rating. So it was still like you got to get the comment in quickly. And 2, it meant that some topics that I would want to talk about just wouldn't get thumbed up. And I want to be able to talk about them. And so I'm trying to find kind of a happy medium. So today I came up with a different way to do it, and that is they got printed off in a random order. So I actually changed my little program so that it would print off the comments randomly. So as long as you left a comment before I make this video, which in this case is Wednesday morning, then you have an equal chance as everybody else to have it answered. Assuming that I want to answer it, of course, because there's always some comments where I'll be like, oh, I'll pass on that one, or I've already answered it, or whatever like that. So that's what I've done. It doesn't mean this is what I'm going to permanently do, but as soon as I thought of the idea, I'm like, yeah, I kind of like that, because it puts everybody on kind of equal ground, and yeah. And maybe what I'll do is some sort of combination, like maybe like the top 4 comments I'll answer, and then it'll be random after that, or, you know, there's no perfect way to do it. Even if I went through and cherry picked them all, that's not perfect, because it means that some people's comments still won't get answered, and maybe I'll never answer those comments. Whereas if it's random, then it kind of puts them in front of me and I've got to look at them anyways. So tell me what you think. But, nah, you know what? Don't really tell me what you think. Leave questions and comments about other things. When I ask people to do that, then I just get a ton of comments about, you know, one thing, like, yeah, this is how you should answer comments and stuff. So if you want to leave something about that, that's fine. But just leave more questions and comments. And still thumb up the ones that you want to see, because I might still do some combination of highest rated ones and then random ones after that. So let's go through them. So if there's like somebody who gets more of their comments in, like it's just random. So you can't blame anything except the pseudo-random algorithms of the internets. Paradox. Hi Matt. I thought I would share my thoughts on a matter you brought up. You stated how 40k disregards science. Yeah, I think the basic principles are there, but it is an alternate universe. If you read the books, they explain more about their universe, and don't just simply ignore it like some games. Do you believe in other universes? Well, before I answer that question, going back to it, yeah, it's definitely an alternate universe. And that's what makes it so fun, and that is a fantastic thing. And I keep getting these buzzes. I'll get back to that later. Sometimes it's an emergency, and sometimes it's not. So it's an alternate universe. When I say they disregard science, I mean they don't really try to make it I guess what you call it is like there's a hard science fiction kind of feel, and then there's just kind of science fantasy. A lot of things are science fantasy, But then you got things that try to be science fiction, like a lot of movies or books will they'll try to take what's the current theories are and make them into an interesting storyline. They usually make them fantastic, way more fantastic than they could. Like you look at Angels and Demons, the sequel to Da Vinci's Code, and they're like, we made this antimatter that could blow up so big. Well, that's true. If you have enough antimatter, you could have an explosion. That would be really big. For one thing, the way it looked, that was a little fantastic. The fact that they're able to make enough of it is a little fantastic, and kind of just the way they talk about it. You can see that they were just it's fiction, so that's okay. But then you get things like Star Wars or Warhammer 40K, where it's not about the science. It's about putting it in a setting that has guns and lasers and spaceships and faster than light travel without really, they've got a cool way for the faster than light travel going through the warp. Like, it's neat. They have their own kind of their own science in a way, and their whole like praying to the machine spirits and all of that. So but at the same time, they don't try to adhere to any of the current theories of science. So that's what I'm talking about. They kind of throw that stuff out the window, and it's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with doing that, because they don't say, hey, yeah, we're science fiction, we're trying to do everything realistically, and then totally blow it. They're just like, no, it's just there's orcs, and there's aliens, and there's guys in power armor, and half the stuff doesn't, like, in the future, why does humanity still have stuff that looks like it was from 50 years ago? This is because it's a style and it's cool. The same like Fallout. When you look at the Fallout franchise, why does it look like it's from the 1940s or 20s or whatever it is? And it's basically because they decided in their universe that stylistic stuff kind of never advanced beyond that, but technology still did. But they don't even try to adhere to like super science. It's just, they just kind of say, it's a plasma gun, pew pew, and it just fires at these green googly things that melt people. And when really that's not what plasma looks like. But who cares? It's fun. So, do I believe in other universes? Yeah, definitely. I believe that it's basically like if you look down a dimension, if you look at a two-dimensional world, basically it has length and width, but no depth. And if somebody lived on that two-dimensional world, they'd have a hard time being able to picture that another two-dimensional world could exist, because they'd look in every direction that they could look and imagine, and it just goes on forever. They're like, we can't fit another one because this one just goes on forever. But of course, us as three-dimensional beings can see that you can easily fit one beside it. In fact, in this space right here, I can fit an infinite number of two-dimensional worlds because they have no, well, maybe not infinite, maybe there's like the Planck scale thing. But still, you can fit a lot of them. So it's the same thing. String theory brings out the fact that we're looking at like 10 or 11 dimensions. And then there's like the brane theory, which is not brain as in brain, but brain as in BRANE, which is that we're just like this three-dimensional blob thing inside of a higher dimensional area, and in which, in that case, you could easily have more of them. So yeah, I have no problem with the idea of more than one universe. Would they have different laws of science and physics? I don't know, maybe. Who knows? But yeah, I don't know if I'd say I believe in other universes as much as I believe that they could exist, because the current scientific theory says they can, and I'm like, yeah, can't see why not. And if they don't, and this is just this one that goes on forever, well, we got an infinite number of space, and it's pretty good too. Also, do you find the fact that 40K the game is so different to the books or even the Codex brief information irritating? I know that if realistically, then a 1,500 point Space Marine army would be a sergeant, 2 tactical squads, and a dreadnought, and a Tyranid army would be like 100,000 plus models. I just think it's irritating they should create alternate rules and realistic models, such as correct size Space Marines and Orcs, and redesign Tyranids. Example of Carnifex that is the correct size. What are your thoughts on the matter? I think they're doing it right. I agree, fluff-wise, it doesn't really balance. You play a game like Space Marine on the PC, and you're like one Space Marine, and you single-handedly take out hundreds of Orcs, and knobs and vehicles and storm boys and all that kind of stuff, and chaos, and oh yeah, and you're just doing that pretty much all by yourself. So occasionally you got guys helping you, but they don't do much. But that's, you kind of have to just play. It's a game in the end. Like when you play StarCraft, if you're a fan of StarCraft, like look at the map you're playing on. They've got this lore, but when you're playing the game, it has nothing to do with the lore. When you really think about it, like. You have these perfectly symmetrical maps where you happen to be mining these minerals that you need right now to start training. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, they don't have to. It's a game. So you have the fluff, which kind of gives some background to the things, but then you have the game that has to then try to balance mechanics and balance. Like, you can't have a Carnifex be a realistic size, it would be huge. You'd have like all Tyrannifex size Carnifexes, and then the Tyrannifexes would have to be even bigger. And so the scaling has to kind of not be perfect, because it's just an abstract way of representing troops on the battlefield. So I don't have a problem with that. It doesn't bother me at all. Cyberslag. Hey Matt, could you please put up the video where you lost your mind 7 minutes in and started dancing like a crazy man? I believe it was the DVD Vault trial offer, which is probably why I can no longer find it. Even if it meant cutting off the Vault trial part of the video and dancing and ranting is more than worth the editing, it was amazing. I realize this probably won't happen, but I can only hope. I never took it down, so you just have to find it. Try going to miniwargaming.com/free Blu-rays and watch that video. I think that might be the video that has it at the end. Or just go onto our YouTube channel and search for free Blu-ray collection. Search for that, and I think that's the video that has it. I never took it down, it's just they get buried after a while. Trinity Blazer. Hi Matt, how much do you think peer pressure affects people's religious beliefs or lack thereof? Oh, huge. But that's what happens with all of our thoughts. It's not just religious beliefs, but scientific beliefs. There's a lot of peer pressure to believe certain scientific things. There's a lot of peer pressure to believe political things. There's a lot of peer pressure to believe everything. Like we're a social people. Even the not so social people we're still inherently a social people, where we are affected greatly by everybody else. For example, Jehovah's Witnesses are threatened by disfellowship from friends and family if they question the Watchtower's doctrine. Yeah, that's just like I said. That's a normal thing. So if a scientist who goes against the grain is usually threatened by being ostracized by fellow scientists. A lot of the theories that people had put out before, like string theory when it was first put out, it didn't stick. And there's been a lot of people who come out with ideas that at first people are like, that's crazy, this is our current theory, that's not really worth looking at, and then later on they turn out to be now the current theory and people are accepting it. So that's normal for anything. That's normal for any belief system. Because everything's a belief system. Even like politics, it's a belief system. Are you conservative or are you liberal? It's a belief system. What do you believe to be better? Even science, there's a belief system there. You might say, well, it's based on evidence, but you're trying to formulate something around the evidence, and so there's a certain belief system there of what is currently right. Because most people aren't Einstein, and so they can't just come with these breakthroughs themselves, so they have to base it off of everybody else's stuff and then try to kind of fit in, use their brain to advance that. So it's a very collective thing. Even Einstein had to base his work off of previous people. He learned and was inspired by other people. So it's all interconnected. So it's not just religion, it's everything. Everything is affected by peer pressure, if you want to look at it that way. So that's a very normal thing. Kukido. Hey, Matt and Mini Wargaming, just one wish. How to play Warhammer Fantasy? Pretty please. Yeah, Warhammer Fantasy, I know people have been asking what we're going to do with Warhammer Fantasy. Right now, we just can't cover it. We just don't have the manpower for it. I do want to, in the future, we've got to pace ourselves properly, because we're growing, but there's also growing expenses. Like we need to move. We actually, if I hired somebody else right now to make videos, they wouldn't be able to make videos. The studio is booked 4 or 5 days out of, 4 or 5 days out of the 6 days that it's available all the time. And so you might think, well, that means there's 1 or 2 days available for the fantasy player. But the problem is, when they come into play, they need players to play against, and we need to be able to be flexible, because people aren't just available those 1 or 2 days. And so we need flexibility in the studios. So we need to move to a place that has 2 or 3 studios, and that way you can almost guarantee that something's open on a given day. And if all of them are booked, that means all the employees are working, so it doesn't work. It doesn't matter. So I definitely want to cover fantasy. It's kind of next on our list to get back into covering, especially because now Steve is working with us, and he loves fantasy, and so we have somebody there that's ready to to be in the videos and to be a supporting actor kind of thing there. So it's not going to be for a little while. I can't tell you how long it'll be. I'd love to hire somebody within the next few months to start doing it, so we'll have to see what happens. Fury in Chains. Hey Matt, it would be great to see the Battle for Macragge done as a campaign. Keep up the good work. I was reading, I'm so excited about the campaigns, because I was just reading in the rule book, and I was going through the fluff areas, and just going through like their little snippets of things that are happening. They're just like 1 paragraph snippets of, this year this happened. Every single one of those was pretty much an awesome idea for a campaign. You just do a little tweaking. I don't like doing historical things. I don't want to go and reenact something like the Battle for Macragge, but you can still get the idea of, it's this type of invasion and these types of ideas. and kind of use that for your own ideas. So when people ask me, where do you get your ideas for narrative campaigns? That's a primary source, is looking at things that have happened and then getting inspired by those. I'll be right back. And I'm back. I had to go potty. Anyways, Bill Cock. Hey Matt, which do you prefer, cats or dogs? Whew, that's an interesting one, because growing up I would have said dogs, and now I would say cats, but really I'd say neither, because we've had both. I grew up, we've had 3 different dogs, and several cats, and a bunch of rabbits, and hamsters and stuff. So I've had the experience of, I even had a couple of goldfish, had the experience of having a lot of pets, and as a kid I really enjoyed them. I thought I'm always going to want to have a dog and a cat. So when I got married, we did shortly after that, not shortly after that, but somewhat shortly after that, get a dog, and then later on a cat. And it was a good experience. It taught us a lot, but it also taught me that I really don't want to have a dog or a cat. The reason for that being is, well, it's like having a perpetual 2-year-old, because they're just, like, don't get me wrong, I like dogs and cats, but dogs are kind of smelly, and they leave hair everywhere, and they bark. Well, not all dogs bark, but our dog barked. And then cats have their litter boxes and all that kind of stuff. So it's just, I think they're cute, but they're just, it's just hard to take care of them. And I've got kids. Maybe once my kids are older, we'll consider that. But if I had to have one, I'd choose a cat, because they're just easier to take care of. And they're less smelly, especially if you keep up with their litter box. Of course, if you're lazy and don't change it very often, then your house will smell like cat pee. But other than that, I think I prefer cats. Yeah. Sparkman28. Hi there, Matt. Mark from Scotland here. Hi. Should I be reading this in a Scottish accent? I'm not even going to try. I've been a Vault member for a little over a month, and I'm loving it. Great. I love it. I blitzed through the Fate of Fame campaign in a couple of days, and I'm looking forward to the outcome of Snegabog's Greed. Keep up the awesome work. My question is, I'm thinking about doing my own campaign with a few friends. We each play different armies, so there's plenty of scope for epic stories. I play Black Templars, but would like to have a team up between them in another chapter. In your opinion, which other chapter would best suit this team? Thanks. I don't know if I can really answer that very well, because I'm not really familiar with all the chapters in detail. Like, when I want ideas, I just kind of go and I read and I come up with ideas. But in the end, if you really look at the stories or campaigns, they're quite simple. Like, they have some twists and turns, but they're still, in terms of story-wise, they're very simple. And so, really what you need to do is you need to get your Black Templar Codex, or if you have especially if you have the old Black Templar Codex. I know that they're kind of wrapped into the Space Marines now. And just read about them. Read about Black Templars and see in history who they've teamed up with, and you can kind of get a feel for what makes sense. Really, they can team up with anybody. You can come up with an excuse for them to team up with anybody, like almost any race. The Tyranids are probably like the only one, and maybe like Chaos, but you could have them team up with Eldar, other Space Marines, Imperial Guard, obviously. You can have them team up with Tau. Even Orcs. There have been times that Space Marines team up with Orcs in desperate circumstances, and so there are things that can work. But that's my huge advice for narrative campaign ideas, is just read the fluff. And then you'll get ideas. You'll be like, oh, that's so cool. Because sometimes they just mention like one little thing. Lexicanum is also a really great source. It's Lexicanum, if you're not familiar with, is a 40k and fantasy wiki. And so it's supposed to be all canon, so meaning like it's all official stuff, but it's maintained by volunteers, and so I kind of get sources from everywhere. I've gotten so many ideas from reading that, because sometimes you'll just see one sentence. Like, I was reading one thing about the Tyranids and talking about their hive fleets and saying when the Tyranids first arrived, but there's been like questions about when they really first came in the galaxy, because, for example, then they found this one hive ship underground in this planet that was dormant, and it was there for, I can't remember how long. And I'm like, that's such a cool idea for a campaign. There's a dormant hive ship that gets reawakened, and all of a sudden that world starts to get attacked by Tyranids, but not by your typical means of having just a fleet arrive and start seeding it and all that. And all of a sudden you have like just kind of an escalation kind of style thing. So that's where I get my ideas, and that's why I strongly recommend that you do. I have a hard time coming up with original ideas. What I can do well is see ideas and then kind of mold them into what we're able to do. Because then I look at the miniatures that we have and what we have available to us in terms of terrain, and then go from there. Once again, I'm not an expert on these yet. I've only done 2. Dave's working on his first. Like, he was participating in the one with me, but now this is his first one that he's done. I'm already planning the next 2. So, ask me in a year and I'll have a much better idea. Mr. 3. Hey Matt, I've been a long-time viewer and just made an account, but on to my question. I heard 7th edition would not require force org charts. What's your opinion? By the time you read this, you'll probably know my opinion, because this week I've been posting all my first impressions. So I'm just going to skip that because you can watch those videos for that. Lick D9, you mentioned making videos in other languages, and while I would like that because German is the most spoken first language in Europe, and most spoken language overall, as well if you ignore English, since Danes, Dutch, etc. learn it in school, even if they probably forget much when their time in school is over, if they don't live in a border region or if the language isn't really close like Dutch. I still don't think it'd actually be worth it, since with a German video you'd still lose all the viewers who only speak English. Yes, well, that's why you'd have Germans making German videos and then people who speak English making English videos, that kind of thing. So I'm afraid you'll have to stick to English for your videos, Matt. However, due to the nature of the people who play 40k, most of the nerds who are potentially interested in Europe should understand English well enough to enjoy your videos. So I think it's more of a marketing than a language barrier problem. Yeah, maybe one day we'll have branch out to other languages, but you're probably right in the sense that there's always a bigger market to go after. Like, for example, we say, okay, we want to expand. It's always about where can we get the most viewers from. And so when we expand, it's like, okay, we need to, for example, covering a new game opens us up to a bunch of new viewers. Or historical. I never thought I'd say this, but I had a conversation with somebody and found out that the historical market's much bigger than I thought. So maybe one day we'll branch out and do historical, because that all of a sudden opens up a whole big market. Or maybe board games, because it's close enough. Not video games, because it's not close enough, except for like I'm going to be playing War Machine Tactics today, actually, because I got the beta access. But that's different. That's just like little one-off things here and there. And so but then is it a big enough market? Like, basically, is it worth putting our money into making French videos or German videos or Spanish videos? Is that going to gain us the same number of viewers of putting that same resources into, say, expanding into War Machine more, or fantasy, or other games? And that's always the question that we have to answer when we allocate more resources. That's why you see Games Workshop no longer doing their specialty games, because they're such a big company that making this little specialty game that'll make them some money won't have the same impact of putting that same resources into doing what other stuff they're doing, or cutting costs and getting profits up. So small companies, it makes sense to do specialty games, but large companies, it doesn't always make sense. And I know people can argue against that, saying, well, but then it gets more people in the hobby, and that's true. But the question is, if let's say I have $1 million I can allocate to something, what is the thing that's going to give me the best return on that investment? And that's what you have to kind of figure out what you need to do. So, all right. Vichy Schloss. Hey Matt, on the subject of competition and losing videos to competitors, a lot of it comes down to whether people like the person making the video. And you guys are eminently likable, so I think you'll be fine. Yeah, and people love Jay, of course. And so I'm interested to see how it's going to go. I think the question last week insinuated that if people like Jay come in and start doing paid membership sites, that's going to take a chunk out of the market. The fact of the matter is, the market is much bigger than the number of people we have in the Mini Wargaming Vault. We've got a lot of people in there, but it's only a percent, like 1%, less than 1% of all the people who come to our site on a yearly basis. And so if there's more than 99% of the people who come to our site who aren't even Vault members, we don't have everybody who plays a miniature war game coming to our site. There are tons of people out there who are still might not even have the idea that there's even a Mini Wargaming Vault, or even care about it. And so there's so much of a market out there to grab for that kind of thing. And the thing is, I think it's still early enough that anybody else like Jay who does it, what they're actually doing is helping people to accept the fact that, hey, yeah, I guess it's okay to pay for videos. Because I remember when we first started doing it years ago, people were like, you're crazy, everything's available for free on YouTube, why would I pay for it? And yet we're starting to see things pop up like Subbable and Patreon, where now people are just paying, not even for anything extra, like there's a few little perks, but really they're just paying to support a free YouTube channel. And so the market's coming around to that. So the more people that do it, the more acceptable it becomes, which allows our marketing to become stronger and get more people into our vault as well. So we're not at the point yet, like Games Workshop, since they're like the behemoth of the market, anybody who comes and takes a piece of the market most likely is going to take more from Games Workshop than they're going to add to the market. Whereas if you're the tiny guy and somebody else comes in this is in this big market, they're more likely going to add more than they're going to take away from you. And so it's going to benefit you until, the market gets so saturated, which we are nowhere near in terms of Vault subscribers. Paradox, you like Science Show? This is the bridge between the two favorite video producers on the internet. You should check out Vlogbrothers. I actually do watch them occasionally. Crash Course, which I do watch occasionally. SciShow Space, which I didn't know that existed. I looked it up after I saw this comment and I watched some videos, so thank you, that's good. And Vsauce/Minute Physics. I do watch both of those. I love all those short physics videos, or the science videos. I just find them interesting. P.S. I love mini wargaming. Also, do you think mini wargaming will be a family business with your son taking over? I don't know. I don't really want it to be, because we're a partnership. And so a partnership it's good, it's working for us, but I would worry that if his son and my son took over, that if there was anything between that didn't work out between them, that it could cause some problems. I really want, once it's time for us to retire, I want there to become one owner, is really what I want it to happen. And so one of us will retire first and sell our shares to the other person, and then that other person can then sell the entire business to somebody else to take over. Whether it's one of our kids or not, we'll find out. I just don't want there to be any of that. It's just a business, and I don't want it to cause family problems in the long run. But it's hard to say. My son's 4 years old. My daughter's 2.5. We're expecting another child in late November or December, and so don't know yet if it's a boy or a girl. And so it's really hard to say what the future really holds. And Dave's kids are similar ages. Pretty much, we've had kids within 8 months of each other. His being a little older, and so it's so hard to really say. Black Orc Down. Hi Matt, thanks for answering my previous questions. You're welcome. This week I want to know, 1, your thoughts on 7th edition playability. Refer to the videos. 2, what is your view on newer religions, example Scientology? The same view on older religions, that there's lots of religions and they all have their ways of trying to believe things. Scientology is an interesting one because it's a religion that doesn't include God. I'm not actually super familiar with it, so it's really hard to say. So not much in terms of views of that. So obviously I have my beliefs, which differ from other people's beliefs. 3, which sauce is better? Ketchup, brown, barbecue, mayo, fail, or awesome? Brown sauce. I'm afraid to ask what that is. So it's really, for me, it's mayonnaise. I'd have to probably is on the top of that, because you mix mayo with barbecue and a steak sub, so good. You mix mayo with ketchup, great French fry sauce, it's great fry sauce. So I'd say mayo, because it's kind of the thing. You can do so much with it. You can do a lot with ketchup too. And barbecue sauce is great. I love Diana sauce, that brand of barbecue sauce in particular. But I'd have to say I use mayo the most. So that's my favorite. Anyone reading comments needs to understand just how awesome the painting videos are once you become a Vault member. This is Black Orc Down. See, he wrote that. And then just add it. Thank you, Black Orc Down. Cranect. On the note of being able to get videos elsewhere, I have to say that I like the way you guys do it a lot better. I know all of the other battle reports I've seen online were voiced over, and they were not as interesting or as certain of what was happening in the battle. Anyway, keep up the great work, and I can guarantee that I'll definitely continue with the Vault subscription. Thank you, and thank you. And that's what it comes down to, is that when somebody says, why would I pay for videos that I can get elsewhere for free? The answer to the question is you can't get those videos elsewhere for free, except maybe some torrent sites. I know that some of our stuff gets torrented, but that's actually, when I see that, I'm like, hey, wow, we're actually big enough that people are pirating our stuff. That kind of makes me feel proud. And that's just it. You say, well, you put 40K battle reports, but I can go watch this guy's 40K battle reports. It's yeah, but you could do that anyway. You can do that anyway, and then you're not going to see those videos. If you buy a Vault membership, it's not like you're going to watch those ones and then you don't have access to the other ones. It's not like you have to pick one or the other, unless you have limited time, of course. If you like our videos, then that video in there is not that video. I'm not saying it's better. I'm just saying it's the style. If you like our style, if you like us, then you can't get that video anywhere else. And that's where it really comes down to. Because somebody could say, well, why would I pay for TV shows when I can just get an antenna up there and watch it for free? And it's that's true, but there's certain things that you just won't get access to. And that's just the way it's going to be. So yeah, that's kind of the way it works. And that's becoming, people are realizing that more and more. And as the Vault grows and we're able to put more in the Vault, it's becoming more and more valuable. Random Idiot 2. Website on the mobile. Use HTML5 and CSS and it will change the layout depending on the size of the screen. It is the best way of doing it. Please do not use a separate mobile site. Yeah, see, that's the way I kind of plan on doing it, is that the site itself will kind of have more of a Web 3.0 or whatever it's called now look to it, where navigation will be bigger and easier to touch with your finger on. And it'll just be designed to work overall. And it's still changing. I'm really curious to see in 20 years from now what the internet will look like in terms of how sites are designed. Because now tablets and phones are just so immensely popular, but it's still a new thing. So who knows? Vezadecchio, I think is how you say it. Hi Matt, love the Blood Angel Orc campaign, can't wait for the next. It's come the apocalypse slaver for Nids again, but now ally with CTA armies with penalties applied. I've always felt that... Am I reading the same comment? I am, okay. I've always felt that orcs and Nids could be allies of convenience. Not really, because the Nids don't really... They're not aware of anybody. If they are allies of convenience with somebody, then it's somebody that, like a gene stealer cult kind of thing. So that's a little different. Really, they just kind of come in, they manipulate, and then they consume everybody. So it's hard. I can see why they had that the Tyranids couldn't have allies before, because they're the one army where you just couldn't quite make it make sense, except for like gene stealer cults. Fluff-wise, rather teaming up together is that both hordes are so big, neither realizes the Nids are multiplying from eating orcs, and the orcs are massing numbers from the attracting log against the Nids, stabilizing the numbers of both. That's awesome. I love that. They're like, hey, we're allies. We're made the orcs think at the Tyranids. They're like, oh, without realizing that all the fighting is making more orcs come in, and spores are getting everywhere and populating more. So the orcs think that they're working with the Tyranids. That's cool. That's kind of funny. I like that. Meanwhile, another force finds itself at the front of both sides in what appears to be a team. This could be represented by allies of convenience on the table, except that mysteriously orc units disappear. Or being battle brothers for the use of psychic powers. Nid's psychic presence affecting an orc horde or a curious weird boy casting psychic powers on Nids doesn't seem too silly, either given the nature of orcs. And you know what? You can do that. You can totally change it. There's nothing stopping you from saying, hey, let's play a campaign where orcs and Tyranids are battle brothers. Just for the heck of it. Actually have Tyranids like driving in orc trucks. Really what's happened is the Termagants all went inside and ate up all the orcs and destroyed them, and they just happened to be like scrambling around, and the orc boy in the front is like, "Rah!" Not even realize what's going on in the back, and he stops, and then all the Tyranids spill out. But it's kind of funny that could be it. My question, since you're a lover of Nid lore, I was wondering if you, like many others, is disappointed at there being no true Astra Militarum / Nid's ally capability. Yeah. Gene Stealer's cults had always been part of Nid history or something that hasn't really come to mind. Keep up the great work. And I can understand why they don't have it, because it'd be hard to make work, because a Gene Stealer cult is just Gene Stealers, really. It's not, you're not really going to have access to all of the Tyranid units. So being able to say Tyranids could ally with Imperium, all of a sudden lets you bring Carnifexes and Hive Tyrants and all this kind of stuff, and when really it's just meant to be the Gene Stealer cult. So it'd be cool if they like release a supplement where a Gene Stealer cult supplement would actually be a really neat digital download that I would totally buy, that kind of detailed how they could actually ally. I think it'd be a great product. They wouldn't have to make any new miniatures. It would just be more ways to play with the current miniatures that you have. And then it could give rules for like Broodlord with like character Broodlords and stuff, like with actual names and all that. Flesh Prison 17 in Roman numerals. I revisited an older bat rep and noticed that you were playing on contributor names table. Whatever happened to that? After all, they did pay for it through Kickstarter. The truth is we actually haven't been using that table very much, and so which is why it hasn't been coming up. But it probably is a good idea that we like swap it up to one that we are using more often. That is true. Rinhammer. Do you go by Matt or Matthew? Is Dave's real name David or Dave? My son insists I ask. Thanks. I go by both. I choose to go by Matthew. I chose something just to be consistent with in business, and that's Matthew. But you can call me Matt, doesn't bother me. It's an acceptable nickname. Dave is David, so that's his his full name. But he goes by Dave. Ed Markle. Hey Matt, have you checked out Alien Dungeon's soon-to-be-released game? It's called All Quiet on the Martian Front. I did see the Kickstarter for it, but I haven't really looked at it much more than that. Set in 1910, this time the Martians attacked the USA first, steam tanks, Harleys, tripods, the BEF, all in 15mm. Rick Presley has his finger in this. They have a YouTube channel, a website, Twitter, Facebook. All the toys in the box, to quote Mystery Science Theater 2000. Maybe you and Dave could do a few how to play in bat reps. Later, dude. Ed. Yeah, I saw it. Don't count on seeing any coverage on it, just I've talked about in the past why that is the case. And I've got to take this. Be right back. And I'm back. All right, Kurt86. Matt, I don't think that people voting for the questions they want answered will really work. I agree. What if someone posts a comment on the Wednesday? It'll never get enough votes to have it answered. Okay, well, I already talked about this. I already found somewhat of a solution. Rotary. I think Jay is great, but if he were to try to get into an active business competition against Mini Wargaming, the deck would be stacked against him. Mini Wargaming Vault seems to have a snowball effect with years of content built into the vault. To catch up and surpass that with a higher quality video would be very difficult. Also, Dave's hate of Tau is irreplaceable. Well, see, he's just a one-man show, though, so he doesn't need to be as big as us in order to call it a success. Like, a lot of our revenue is, if a huge amount of our revenue goes into overhead. It goes into paying myself and Dave and Chris and Jay, sorry, not Jay, and Joel and Justin, and I'm missing somebody. Well, Steve now. And the lease and the new terrain. Like, we've been putting tons of money into new terrain, into new models. He doesn't have to pay for all that. He can keep it simpler, and so it doesn't need as big of a customer base in order to make it work. Like, think about it. How much money would he have to make in order for it to be what he deems to be successful? And he's talked about it in his videos, actually. I've been watching them. And he talks about how he just wants to be able to replace, right now his goal is to replace his income at his job, which is not this high-paying job. So really, if he's making like, what, $30,000 or $40,000 a year? And I don't know how much YouTube takes as a cut, because he's using YouTube to do it. So let's say that he needs $50,000 a year to do that. Well, he wants to charge like $6 a month for the memberships. And so you do the math, and that just works out to a few hundred people. Is that what it is? But whatever it is, yeah, that's like $4,000 a month. Divide that by 6, so it'd be like 800, 700, like 600 to 700 Vault members or Warp members is what he would need. And that's perfectly doable. That is totally doable for him to do. If it won't happen overnight, but if he works hard, then maybe over the next year or two, he'll be able to achieve that. And that's great. In the meantime, we're going to grow too. Is he going to be able to surpass us? Eventually he could, if he all of a sudden turned it into a larger business like what we're doing. But it's hard to go from a one-man operation to a multi-man operation, because as soon as you add a second person, you add huge costs. And so my point is, you don't have to be, like, somebody doesn't have to be as big as Games Workshop to make it worthwhile to go into the miniature business. Like Privateer Press is doing well, and they're not as big as Games Workshop. Infinity, that's a good game. They're not as big as Games Workshop. They don't have to be. So everybody has their different levels that'll work for them as well. Alfarius Omegon. Matt, 7th edition. I'm so happy that they brought back Summoning Demons. I do see some overpowered lists coming, as now you get 1 die for every mastery level on your side of the field, but it's now much harder to cast psychic powers. You can make some demons lists that give at least 26 dice, plus whatever d6 you roll. You can actually do more than that. What do you think about this, and now that anybody's trying to use powers outside their specific power tree now peril on any doubles? I think it's going to be interesting. Like, there's going to be the cheese list where people can bring a ton of psychers, and I think that's fine, and I just don't care about that kind of stuff, though, because we already play kind of however we want. So I don't play in the competitive scene, and the competitive scene can have an easy fix. If Unbound turns out to be kind of too ridiculous, then they can just say, you know what, no more Unbound in our tournament. You have to use the Battleforge stuff. And they can put their own limitations in effect. Nobody's stopping them from doing that, so I really don't have a problem with it. Psychic powers are harder to get off now. It's harder to actually cast them. The percentages are much, much higher, or much lower for being successful. So you kind of need those extra dice just to do that. Maximus the Lord. Matt, not all Forge World models are super heavies and so on. Yep, I know. For example, if you got a couple of Contemptor Dreadnoughts, ooh, we do have one actually, it's getting painted up. For the Mini Wargaming chapter, that would be awesome. A Land Raider with built-in Thunderfire cannon, Land Raider with Whirlwind launcher. I have to say they treat the Space Marines very nicely at Forge World. It's a good reason for that. It's their biggest seller by far. By the way, what's the Mini Wargaming chapter's official name? The High Rollers, Sons of Dave. We have an official name, and it actually has the initials MWG, and I can't remember what it's called. That's written down somewhere. Yeah, no, I know, totally. We even have a Contemptor that we're getting painted up, and there's all the other stuff too. It's just right now we're just building, like we're just building the basic Space Marine army. So eventually we'll want to add some cool Forge World stuff. Soul Armor. Matthew, greetings to you. I enjoy Snagabog Raid, but still don't have a clue what the Chaos Necrons are about. Are you putting out a video with you and Dave about it, or can you explain those armies now? The last story time, which will hopefully go up, or hopefully already be up by the time you watch this, we'll have explained that to some extent. Not everything will have been explained though, and that's on purpose because it's meant to. There's going to be stuff happening in future campaigns that'll explain it. Let me just put it that way. Chozon1. Hey Matt, I was thinking about your comments on a War Machine narrative campaign and how it would be more difficult because there are no generic warcasters. What are your thoughts about using a solo unit, giving them a name and maybe special power, and making a campaign about them, with the main warcasters coming in to lead them, or having them go to save the warcaster, or some other legitimate excuse for them to be there? Like a journeyman warcaster for Signar, or a Kolden Lord for Kador, or a Reclaimer for Menoth, or some such. That's a great idea. I was having a conversation with Joel yesterday about it because he's working on the War Machine League right now. He only works for us part-time, so he doesn't have as much time to get other stuff done. But we did start talking about the possibility for War Machine narrative campaigns, and he's excited about that idea. And we talked about my concerns for how it would be harder, but at the same time he's got some ideas, and so you might see those. I wouldn't expect them next week. You're probably not going to see them for at least a couple months, if not a little longer, as we try to sort it out. But yeah, we're going to find ways to make it work. It'll just have to be different than the 40k narrative campaigns. We'll have to play to War Machine's strengths. So I kind of like your idea, though, where you kind of take one of the solos and you give them a name and kind of let them develop new powers and stuff. See, I would totally make generic warcasters. The problem that I have is we don't have the models for them. But maybe we could look into like another company's models that have steampunk models and have them substitute in there instead. That could also work. So we're going to have to look into that. Crackers Finn. Hey Matt, you were talking about having a dedicated green screen room where you guys moved to a new studio. I think it would be fun if you took a picture of your present office and use it as a backdrop every time you do a new sit and talk video in the green screen room. I read this before and I thought it was funny. It would serve no other purpose but to confuse new viewers and keep the old viewers in a familiar setting. I love that. So I just kind of get off the screen, take a screenshot, and that's the backdrop. That would be so funny. I think I'll take your suggestion if we ever do that. Like I said, it would be seem fun to do, but entirely pointless. Anyways, keep fighting the good fight. That's awesome. Luna Voco. Like the legion of others, the campaign's finally tipped the scales for me, and I've recently signed up to the Vault for reals this time. Previously, you misspelled it, so I can't read it properly. You have the S and the U, and that's not the reason I couldn't say it. I've signed up to take advantage of the DVD offers, but never stayed past the trial period. Matt, I would completely lose my mind if you do a narrative escalation campaign like this for War Machine. Just talked about that. Would a bribe help? Well, you know what? Yeah, we're not going to do it unless you send me a bribe. Just joking. I'm not going to accept it. I'll upgrade to gold if you use Signar. Well, maybe we'll have to start with Signar. During Snagabog's Greed, I love that Dave was available to hold the camera during Matt's turn. It's nice to be able to see both players during the course of the game. I understand the reasoning, but it would be nice to have more opportunities to see Matt during his game and with non-mini wargaming employees. I imagine this applies to Dave's games too, but I haven't seen it in a while. I used to do that. I used to have my opponent hold the camera, but I kind of stopped doing it because you lose a bit of quality because they don't have a lot of practice in it. They don't have a lot of experience, so that's kind of why you see that. Speaking of camera work, during Mission 5 there were several clips of Dave and Matt talking to one another where the camera panned up to Dave/Matt. In Mission 6A, Dave brought the camera down to a model's eye level. Both were a nice visual change of pace. I think incorporating more varied camera work could cheaply improve the overall quality of battle reports. I agree. Dave seems to have more of an eye for that kind of stuff than I do. He thinks to do it more often than I do. No matter how good the personality, staring straight down at the table for 30 minutes can get old. No hate, I love the work y'all do. I'm merely pointing out something I think could be improved. And that's a perfect idea because it takes no extra time, no extra money, and it improves quality. So that's like, good idea. Arablo92. Hey Matt, do you plan on doing another campaign? I think the first two were a great hit, so I think you should definitely do more. Dave and Steve, right now, are actually filming missions 4A and 4B for the next campaign. That's right, they're already filming missions 4A and 4B. We haven't even posted the first one. By the time we post the first one, they will probably be finished missions 5A and 5B. So yes, we are definitely going to do many, many, many more 40k narrative campaigns, probably War Machine narrative campaigns, and most likely Infinity narrative campaigns as well, because they have been too hugely successful. And I'm talking in every way. They get the most views, we get the most vault signups. It's just really, people love it. And we have to do more. Bulldoze. Hey Matt, I got my question in late last week, so I'll try again. I know you have gone over your current views of fantasy coverage, but if a person wishes to challenge you to a game of fantasy, would you agree? I'd probably have to say no because I'm so rusty with the rules that it would be hard to do it. What I might do is have it with a challenge that I might put them up against Steve, and then I would record the battle report. So that could be a possibility. As a follow-up, I assume such rare content would be Vault exclusive. Now what we'd probably do is we'd film 2 battle reports. and have one for free and one in the vault. Because when you put stuff just in the vault, then people don't really know it's there, and it doesn't push more people into the vault. Whereas if you put the free one in the vault, then you make them aware. Kind of like the painting tutorials are mostly just vault. I do want to try to find ways to do some for free as well, but we'll see. Sparkman28, hi there, Matt. Mark from Scotland here. I've been a vault member for a little over a month, and I'm loving it. Hold on a second. Did you double post, or did my thing, which is pulling up random comments, actually grab the same one twice? All right. Cyberslag. Hey Matt, you say you hate the magic phase in Warhammer Fantasy, but does it not make more sense at this... Okay, you lost me right there. It doesn't have to make sense. It just has to be fun. This is a game, and it has to be fun. And when something is frustrating, which the magic phase in fantasy totally is, and I've been on both sides, where I've been the guy in Tube King's army who needs to get his magic off to be half effective, up against the high elf guy who's like, no, you can't do it, and I hate it. And I've also been the Lizardman guy with the level 4 level 4 wizard who has all sorts of awesome buffs and debuffs to the enemy wizards, and I felt kind of like a bit of a jerk doing it, because I'm like, he's just trying to get his magic off, which is all cool stuff, and I'm like, no! And so that's all I got to say. It doesn't have to make sense. It has to be fun. But I'll finish reading your question. Does it not make sense that the Psykers, Sorcerers, etc. in your army would attempt to disrupt enemy Psykana magics? To me, the 6th edition Psychic actions make less sense. If I had a Warlock/Farseer watching the librarian blasting a unit they aren't a part of, it doesn't make much sense that they would just sit and watch it happen when they have a means to combat it. Yeah, so you know my opinion on that. Crownblade, hi Matt, have you ever considered covering some of GW older, smaller games? We have considered it, but most likely never will, because they have now been discontinued. And that means a smaller fan base for those games. You're always going to have that core group that continues playing it, but you're never going to have new people coming in. So it'll always make more sense for us to cover some other game, unfortunately. I would have liked to, but maybe they'll still do it like Space Hulk, where they'll like occasionally come out with a new one. And because Space Hulk was a big success, Dreadfleet wasn't so much. But Space Hulk was. So if they ever come out like that, we'll probably do some temporary coverage where we get the set and play with it and all that kind of stuff, just like we did with Space Hulk. Odin 1053. The issue with 3D printing is the distribution of 3D plans. You don't have the design to design them in. You just hit print and someone's scanned Space Marine pops out. This does assume cost and ease of use continues on the current trend. You still, when you scan the model, you're not going to like. I have some experience with printing with 3D stuff because we did some with Dark Potential. I'm not hugely experienced with it, but when it comes down to it, a model is much more complex than just something that scans it. Because if you just scan it, you don't pick up anything that curves back. Like if you have something that goes down and then curves back up, well, when you're scanning it from the side, you don't pick up what curves back in there, so you can't get all the details. So I just don't think you're going to see 3D printers on people's desks. I just don't see that happening because it doesn't make sense for most people. Like the miniature wargaming market is one of the few places where it makes sense for people to want to have one. And that's a small market, so I just don't see it ever happening. UK Sweeney. Hi, I'm trying again for the 5th time. I may just email if it gets to a 6. What, no Warhammer Fantasy for a year? Even once a month? 12 little videos, or give us a time scale. They are what I joined the Vault for, after all. I already talked about that, so sorry, UK Sweeney. Jake Nid, hey Matt, I would just want her to know if you are on board with the whole new phase in 7th edition. Yes. Go watch the other videos for more information on that. Howling Wolf, 1337. Matt, I find that the search function on your website will most likely link to forum posts. Just putting in deathmatch should give you the battle reports that were posted a few days ago, but it only gives forum posts. Can you fix this? We use Google search for it, so it's kind of hard to fix it without like separating the search function for the forum and separate it for the website, which might be a good idea. So that's something I always intend to go back and change it, but that's part of the kind of part of the website redesign that I want to eventually do. And 25, hi, Sweet here. I just bought the Tyrannus Swarm box plus the Carnifex. Awesome. About 10 Geosaurs and a Prime. What's the smart choice to get some good Synapse coverage? Warriors. Warriors are your kind of bread and butter Synapse coverage now. I always like to bring a couple spots of them, even if I don't give them any upgrades, because they just sit in the back. Because they're hardy, and they're troop choices, especially with the new Battle Forge thing. That means when they hold the objectives that they're sitting on the back, it's harder to contest them. And so yeah, Warriors are definitely good. Monument City Cress. Hey Matt, so by the time you get to the 7th edition of 40k, we'll be live, so to speak. What are your first impressions? Now, you didn't know that I made those videos already, so I'll just say I've made an entire series of first impressions that by the time you watch this, all of them will be posted on our website. So go ahead and check those out. As a follow-up question that is actually unrelated, still determined to get your opinion on how to get my fiance comfortable with wargaming outside the comfort of our home. If she doesn't want to play, I don't know. It's you can play it. If they get into it, then it's great. If they don't, then it's a hobby, right? People just do what they want to do. She loves the fluff and mechanics of various games, but she is still not down with going to local shops because she thinks people are judging her, which may have some basis in truth, but not as much as she thinks. Probably has more basis in truth, because let's face it, 93% of war gamers are male, at least the ones that watch our channel, which means you're not going to have as many females, which means there's just going to be a stigma attached to it, and it's just, it's just a fact of life, unfortunately, that they just will automatically get treated a little differently. Until people get comfortable with them, of course. Like if there's a group of gamers and the same females coming out all the time, I'm sure that it just becomes fine. But, yeah. I want her to stay interested, but don't want to push her too hard and spoil any interest she already has in it. You just have to kind of just go with it. It's a hobby, and it's just, you just do what is fun. I think I'm almost out of time. The fact that I've restarted it twice means that my timer no longer tells me how long I've been doing it for, but I think the first one was 15, the second one was 20. It's 35, 40, so I'm like 5 or 10 minutes in. Let's see if I can finish it. I've actually almost done all the comments that were posted up to this point. Raziel, hello, talking about Sandbox Green, I noticed you guys had put out some great orky terrain this time, but I didn't remember it from before. Is it new? Who made it? Yes, it is. Adam from Greenleaf Terrain made it for that campaign. Unfortunately, it wasn't ready in time for the beginning part of the campaign. But yeah, Greenleaf Terrain. I highly recommend him for making your terrain stuff. I know that miniature painting is more popular, and he does that as well. But it was fantastic. He really, I gave him very little to go on, and he created that stuff, and it was good. And it wouldn't be that expensive to ship either, because it can all fit nicely into a box. I can recognize some bits here and there, and it really inspired me. He had spoken about the want and need for more terrain, and I also agree with you how important it is to games. I was wondering if you guys had another table like your simple brown earth table with the grass flock, only in a different color, like gray or red, or some other basic soil color. If not, why not make one? And we're planning on expanding our terrain. It's been something now that we're doing campaigns that I've really been pushing to do. Eisenstein. Hi Matt, have you considered making your normal bat reps more narrative after you had so much success with your 2 campaigns? Actually, the answer would be the opposite. I would definitely not want them to be narrative because you want a change of pace. It's really what you need. The hobby is fun if you have different ways to play it. And I find that the regular battle reports are a nice break from narrative campaigns, and I see from the comments that people agree with that. That, you watch campaigns and that's fun and you love them, but then you just feel like watching a traditional game of 2 armies that are using the rules. Especially now that 7th edition is out, people want to see how the rules play. And a narrative campaign won't show them that because we make new rules for it. So I don't think you'll ever see the regular battle reports take a narrative spin on them, because that's just not what they're intended for. Vespian Flavian. Hi Matt, will the new campaign between Steve and Dave be 6th or 7th? Actually both. They started recording it last week, so the first 2 sets of missions are 6th, and then the 3rd and onward are in 7th, before FAQs. So it's going to be all sorts of rules that are different and stuff. So enjoy it for the narrative. There will be rules that will be wrong because this is the brand new edition. Missman94. Hello there, Mini Wargaming Matt. I was wondering, where did Dark Potential go? It's been nearly a year since I've seen any new videos about your tabletop game. It was interesting. I would like to see more. Really, it comes down to a funding thing. Dark Potential's on the back burner. It's something I always intend to go back to, but right now we are super busy making videos and growing the vault, and that is making us money. And that's what we've got to kind of stick to. Dark Potential, in order to do a miniature war game, I think most people don't really know just how intense and time intensive and money intensive it actually is. The amount of money we would require. I need at least $500,000 to be able to go forward and really make it work. And you might think, well, that doesn't cost that much to get it sculpted and cast. You're right, it doesn't cost that much to get 1 or 2 models. But if you want a successful miniature war game, you need diversity, you need rule sets, you need art, you need just a lot of marketing and time, and that all costs money. So I'm not going to really touch it until I'm really ready to do it right. So, like for example, not that I'm going to do this, but I'd love, when I actually go into it, to do it in plastic rather than metal, just because plastic is better. Instinctual. Hey Matt, quick question about the mini wargaming chapter. 1. Will you accept submissions if someone wants to send in a mini to join the army? Sure, if it's painted well enough. I have numerous extra Marines lying about, and it might be fun to paint one up and send it in for your use. 2, if you're going to accept minis, could you post the official colors and unit markings somewhere on the website? Or a quick video so that submitters can keep everything in line with the proper iconography according to Codex Mini Wargaming. I actually do have a file that shows exactly the color scheme. If you're interested in having it, send me an email, matt@miniwargaming.com, and I'll give it to you. 3, if you will accept models, are there any particular need, or would you like to receive for future /planned battle reports? Basically, character models would be good. And I don't mean like named characters, I mean like just things that could be used as characters in the game. So even like conversions on models would be awesome. Thanks again for all the great videos and all the effort you guys put into this. Instinctual. Thank you. Cranblade. Oh, in Battlefield Gothic. Oh, see, that's the problem with random is that somebody posts a follow-up comment and it doesn't make sense now. Black Orc Down. Have you ever thought about doing a tour? It would be tax deductible. Like a tour around the world. Yeah, see the thing is, people say it's tax deductible. It's a write-off. What that means is you spent money that you can't have, which is why the government won't charge you for it. That means if you spend $10,000 and it's a write-off, then you saved, with us, corporate taxes around 15%. So now I won't have to pay $1,500 in taxes. So I spend $10,000 and save $1,500. So I've lost $8,500. So when people say it's a write-off or it's tax deductible, they're right, because you don't have that money anymore. And so being tax deductible isn't that huge an incentive to do it. But this doesn't mean that we don't want to do a tour. How about a number of subscription pots in the vault for different causes, like Mini Wargaming Kickstarters, where vault members can contribute whichever you got funding for. You could then do. Example: new camera, new army, or tour. Yeah, I don't know. It's working really well the way it is, where we just kind of, as we get more money, we can then make the decisions rather than kind of being dictated where the money is put by the customers. Customers don't always, usually don't know what the best way to use the money is. Like if you can imagine going to McDonald's and saying, hey, I bought a hamburger, I'd like this particular amount of money from the profits of this hamburger to go into making this location better. Or to go to this employee to help them. Like if everybody could kind of dictate where the money went, then McDonald's would fail because people don't have a good grasp on what the business needs. So, yeah. Ed Markle, hey Matt, have you ever considered a game cafe as part of your new digs when you move? Definitely. Jake Ned, Matt, can you tell me the whole list of the stall currently? Could you tell me the whole list of the stall currently? I have no idea what you're asking. Chris, do you have any idea what he's asking?
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening.
Could you tell me the whole list of the stall currently?
Not with you.
Sorry, you're gonna have to clarify. Chaos Havoc, why do you think that Games Workshop never has any sales? Because they're the manufacturer, distributor, and retailer. So why would they need to have sales? Who are they competing against? You might think other miniature companies, but they set their prices. So why would they? If they start doing sales, then people will hold out for those sales, and sales cut hugely to their profit. I don't think they should ever do a sale. They shouldn't. They can have special offers, like a package deal, where it's like get the Strike Force and you save money on the whole thing. So in a sense, they do sales all the time. They do free shipping on orders over a certain amount. That's this type of sale. And so they do sales, just not like the typical, where it encourages people to wait for things to be cheaper. Think about like when people go grocery shopping, how much stuff they won't buy because it's not on sale. I never buy chocolate milk unless it's on sale. Well, I shouldn't say never, but I often won't buy chocolate milk unless it's on sale. Whereas milk, I don't even look at the price. It's just milk. It's always everybody competes on milk prices so much that it's pretty much the same everywhere you go, within a small margin. But like meat, for example, I pretty much only ever buy when it's on sale, because if you go at any given moment, you'll probably find something that's on sale, and you're able to buy a lot of that, pack it into your freezer, and then you don't have to worry about it until the next sale. And so it encourages people to constantly buy at a lower price. Now, since everybody's competing on meat and on groceries, it's highly competitive because because it's groceries. They have to do that in order to really compete, to make their product look better. But Games Workshop has nobody to compete with for their own products. And you might think, well, independent retailers sell it cheaper. Yeah, but where do the independent retailers get it from? From Games Workshop. So because they are totally vertically integrated, that they're the manufacturer, distributor, and retailer, and designer, and creator, and promoter, they have no reason to have any sales, ever. Package deals are one thing, where you get like a Battle Force or Strike Force or something that's cheaper than buying all the models individually. But that's about it. Black Orc Down is 7th, just an update of 6, including errata and FAQ plus a new phase, or is it completely new? It's definitely not completely new, but none of the updates are ever completely new because then they'd have to redo all the codexes. So it's kind of like the 6th edition with errata and FAQs plus a new phase, but there's so many changes that I'd still call it 7th. This isn't a prelude to new editions every 2 years, is it? I don't think so. I think that they saw a need and an opportunity and they took it. Kooky, there won't be a little rulebook in the new starter, Matt. Oh yeah? Interesting. Bad Doc, the sit talk before last, you discussed Mini Wargaming's big ideas for the future, such as opening new branches and studios in different areas. In the event that this happens, can you see yourself and Dave working from the same studio, or would you be in different studios? We'd probably be in the same one because neither of us really want to move. Last question. Nod Voidwalker. Hello Matt, new Vault member here, and I love your shows in general. Anything you guys put out, please keep it up. Thank you, and we will. My question to you is, you remarked that you had played D&D before and you had DM'd. Do you ever plan to maybe cover some of the role-playing game scene on the site? I understand that it'd be a long way down the road with the stabilization of your store, but I'd love to see some of the Warhammer 40k RPGs being played by you and Dave. That is definitely a possibility. Like I've even talked about going in historical games or board games. So role-playing games fits this genre of the whole tabletop social game. Where miniatures are involved, or at least something like that is involved. So it's kind of like, it's a tabletop. Yeah, it could become that over the long run. It's more than just mini wargaming, we're tabletop gaming. Obviously that we can't get that name, but that's fine. Thank you for all your questions. Of course, if you want your question answered, leave a comment below. If you're watching this on YouTube, of course, click the video, the link to the video description below to go to our site and leave the comment there. Still vote up questions like, Of course, still vote up comments, because I probably will do a mixture of having the top comment ones. Anyways, happy wargaming.